Hello, my friends. Check out this backdrop. Pretty cool, huh? I'm obviously not at home. I'm away for the holidays, but during my travels, I always bring a book with me, and this is a book I'm just going to read like 3 paragraphs from, and I just love it. It's called Wanderlust. I don't know if you can see this, the lighting in here. I'm not used to it. Wanderlust, A History of Walking. And it's so beautiful. And like I said, I want to share just a few paragraphs. And what I did for the background, like B-roll footage, was I've recorded myself outside, just kind of getting ready for a walk. And I did like some hopscotch, and I did hopscotch on my right side and then on my left. So Parkinson's affects my left side. And not to say that like my balance is amazing, but it is actually pretty good. I will take it. But on my left side, dramatically different. So before I started taking Carbidopa Levodopa, this was the time in between my diagnosis in December of 2013 and when I started taking Carbidopa Levodopa in June of 2014. But I remember sitting at a red light and watching a guy just cross the crosswalk and just walk and just do it. And if you ever look up the gait cycle, the mechanics, the kinetics behind it, it's fascinating, it's incredible, it's complex. I mean, it involves our nervous system, our respiratory system, I mean, all of these complex systems. And I just love this book so much. It's so beautiful. And so I thought I'd share it with you. It's called Wanderlust, A History of Walking by Rebecca Solnit. Where does it start? Muscles tense, one leg a pillar, holding the body upright between the earth and the sky. The other a pendulum, swinging from behind. Heel touches down. The whole weight of the body rolls forward onto the ball of the foot. The big toe pushes off, and the delicately balanced weight of the body shifts again. The legs reverse position. It starts with a step, and then another step, and then another, that add up like taps on a drum to a rhythm, the rhythm of walking. The most obvious and the most obscure thing in the world, this walking that wanders so readily into religion, philosophy, landscape, urban policy, anatomy, allegory, and heartbreak. The history of walking is an unwritten, secret history whose fragments can be found in 1,000 unempathetic passages in books, as well as in songs, streets, and almost everyone's adventures. The bodily history of walking is that of the bipedal evolution of human anatomy. Most of the time, walking is merely practical, the unconsidered locomotive means between two sites. To make walking into an investigation, a ritual, a meditation, is a special subset of walking, physiologically like and philosophically unlike the way the mail carrier brings the mail and the office worker reaches the train. Which is to say that the subject of walking is, in some sense, about how we invest universal acts with particular meaning. Like eating or breathing, it can be invested with wildly different cultural meanings, from the erotic to the spiritual, from the revolutionary to the artistic. Here, this history begins to become part of the history of the imagination and the culture, of what kind of pleasure, freedom, and meaning are pursued at different times by different kinds of walks and walkers. The imagination has both shaped and been shaped by the spaces it passes through on 2 feet. Walking has created paths, roads, trade routes, generated local and cross-continental senses of place, shaped city parks, generated maps, guidebooks, gears, and further afield, a vast library of walking stories and poems, of pilgrimages, mountaineering expeditions, meanders, and summer picnics. The landscape, urban and rural, gestate the stories, and the stories bring us back to the sites of this history. This history of walking is an amateur history, just as walking is an amateur act. To use a walking metaphor, it trespasses through everybody else's field, through anatomy, anthropology, architecture, gardening, geography, political and cultural history, literature, sexuality, religious studies, and doesn't stop in any of them on its long route. For if a field of expertise can be imagined as a real field, a nice rectangular confine carefully tilled and yielding a specific crop, then the subject of walking resembles walking itself in its lack of confines. And though the history of walking is, as part all these fields and everyone's experience, virtually infinite, this history of walking I am writing can only be partial, an idiosyncratic path traced through them by one walker, with much doubling back and looking around. In what follows, I tried to trace the paths that brought most of us to my country, the United States, into the present moment, a history compounded largely of European sources, inflected and subverted by the vastly different scale of American space, the centuries of adaptation and mutation here, and by the other traditions that have recently met up with those paths, notably Asian traditions. The history of walking is everyone's history, and any one written version can only hope to indicate some of the more well-trodden paths in the author's vicinity, which is to say the paths I trace are not the only paths. I just love that. And this is just, I would highly recommend it if you're interested in the history of walking. It's a series of essays. It's interesting, so it's a great collection of essays about walking, and yeah, that's what I'm reading right now, and I will discuss my travels and kind of what I've been up to. It's been incredibly stressful. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to think about it. But now everything's great, so I'm not going to focus on that. It's just, I'm happy. I've got this book. I've got a warm house that I'm hanging out in, and I've got friends and family that I love, and it's all good, and I can still walk and do hopscotch, albeit not that great, but yeah, I'm just thankful as always. So thankful for this channel, thankful for you and your comments, and those of you who have subscribed, thank you, and you probably won't hear from me until 2024, January, so Happy New Year, everybody. Mwah.